Hey folks, Alcris here with another quick video, this time about how to build unique units and a quick look at the different nations' unique units in Old World. So you may notice when you found a city, you'll see that your unique unit is actually listed there as a unit you can train, but it's grayed out and says it requires developing culture and requires stronghold. So very quickly, every city has this culture bar. That's the blue bar here, and you can see it's filled up. It's about 40% here. It says 40 out of 100, and it's currently weak. Culture goes from weak to developing, to strong, to legendary. So we need just to get from weak to developing in order to get that hoplite constructed. We also need a stronghold. We grab this worker here and see what it can build. We see we have stronghold listed as something that takes 110 stone, but it requires developing culture and 4 active laws. Laws, which are this tab up here, are essentially flat bonuses for your nation. Laws cost 400 civics each to enact and come in pairs that are mutually exclusive. You can swap between laws in the pair for 300 civics. Civics are the golden hammer icon here. This is your global civics pool. This is what you use to enact laws. You're going to need 1600 civics to enact 4 laws to get your unique unit. Alternatively, you can build the Pyramid Wonder, which reduces the cost of starting a law by 50%. In other words, with pyramids, your laws just cost 200 civics, not 400 civics, to enact initially. This makes pyramids one of the strongest wonders in the game, and something you should try to target every game if you can. You can see which wonders are available in the game by hovering over the laurel icon here. 3 wonders will not be available in the game. These are randomly chosen. There's 4 wonders every tier of culture. This is also a great place to quickly reference the culture tiers if you need to. Weak, developing, strong, and legendary. Because I want to speed up this demonstration video, I'm going to go ahead and build the pyramids here. Notice I'm holding down Alt. I don't actually have 600 stone, but if I hold down Alt, I can buy the remainder of stone that I'm missing. This is a useful tactic if you ever need to buy missing resources and don't want to manually sell them using the market. Pyramids are underway, and our laws will be cheaper when we tech to them. Speaking of tech, let's take a look at where laws are in the tech tree. Laws are these circular icons here. For example, labor force unlocks slavery and freedom. These are the same pairs of laws that you see in the laws screen. Slavery and freedom. It also tells you there what tech is required. You can click on a particular element of the tech tree to target it. This adds a little green target icon and this little, triangle that shows you the way towards the tech. This is really handy to keep track of which tech cards you should be going towards, especially if you are targeting tech somewhat deep. We're going to be using this to select the laws that we want to start with. Remember, we want to get 4 laws up and running so that we can get our unique unit unlocked. So we're going to suggest picking one of the slavery and freedom laws, one of the colonies and serfdom laws, because serfdom has that amazing 5 orders a turn. The aristocracy law, which I've selected here because that's another easy law that doesn't require a lot of tech, and the law that's behind rhetoric, epics or exploration. All right, I've gone ahead and played until I get my first law. Whenever you get a law, you're going to pop up like this that gives you the choice of the 2 laws. Generally, I like to go into the court will choose the law option here. These 2 options just select the laws. By clicking on that court option, which is the same as clicking this glowing icon here, you can actually see what the 2 laws are, as well as see any upkeep or cost that the laws have. For this first tier of law, I recommend freedom after the most recent patch changes. It'll give you an extra science point per urban specialist and 2 culture in your capital city, which will let your capital city get to developing and later strong culture faster that you'll need for unique unit. Slavery is also an option. It gives you more output from your mines and quarries, but gives you 1 discontent a year. Given the current rebalancing, I would recommend freedom for this first choice of laws. But we won't enact the laws yet. Our pyramids are 1 year away. Right now, it costs 400 to enact this law, but if we wait just 1 turn, we'll complete the pyramids, get a developing culture event because our culture leveled up. Now if we go, we see that it's going to cost us just 200 civics to enact this law, much cheaper, thanks to the pyramids. We've discovered enough tech to unlock a second law, epics or exploration. I recommend epics here. It's more useful, but on water maps, exploration is particularly good since it allows your scouts to move on water. But epics can give you extra culture in cities by killing barbarians nearby. which is pretty handy in the early game. We're halfway there. 2 out of 4 laws that we need for a unique unit. This unlocked our third law, which is a choice of centralization and vassalage. I would recommend vassalage because it reduces unit consumption. So what is unit consumption? If you look up a unit like the Greek unique unit Hoplite, you'll see a line that says consumes with its costs, or it's down here as well. 1 training, 1 food, and 2 iron a turn. That means you're going to see unit upkeep, which you can see in the tooltips here, minus 11 food from units, minus 1.5 iron from units, no stone consumption from units, and no wood consumption. That's the upkeep, or the unit consumption, and that's what's reduced by vassalage. Vassalage also says no extra unit consumption when outside borders. The extra unit consumption outside borders is plus 50%, so that would mean our Hoplite would be 1.5 training when it's outside borders, 1.5 food when it's outside borders, and 3 iron. So vassalage saves you quite a lot of resources just by reducing the costs it takes to keep units in the field. And since you're going to want to have a lot of units in the field, I strongly recommend taking vassalage in these laws. Let's go ahead and take vassalage. 3 out of 4, almost there. All right, we discovered our 4th law. It's a choice of colonies and serfdom. Colonies lets you buy tiles anywhere, which is super nice, but serfdom offers an incredible 5 extra orders a turn, which is really, really nice at the cost of 1 discontent per year and some money upkeep. That's 12 money, which is minus 4 per year per city. If you hover over it, since I have 3 cities right now, works out to 12. I strongly recommend serfdom here. 5 orders is really, really nice. All right, we have our 4 laws. Let's build our stronghold. All right, we have completed our stronghold here. Now, if we go into Pella, we can see we can indeed build a hoplite. Hurrah, we can build our unique unit at last. Now, unique units come in 2 flavors. One that has 6 strength, and one that you can upgrade to that has 8 strength. What do we need to build the 8 strength one? We need strong culture in a city and a citadel. Citadel requires strong culture, of course, and 7 active laws. So we need 3 more laws than we have. Looking at the tech tree, natural laws to consider are the laws at sovereignty. That's pretty close by. The laws at citizenship, which is also the next available laws, and the laws at monasticism. So we're going to be targeting these next 3 laws to get to the next tier of the unique unit. And it can be a little confusing at the start. The nation's 2 tiers of unique units are named differently. So for Greece, the 6 strength version of the unique unit is called the Hoplite, but the 8 strength version is called the Phalangite. And I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that. Apologies. While we tech up to get to those 7 laws, let's take a look at another city. What if we want to build our unique unit somewhere other than our capital? We see that we still need developing culture and a stronghold in this city as well. One way you can get a nice boost of culture in a city is by building an Odeon or a shrine. Greece, for example, has the Shrine of Hades that gives you 5 culture a year, and any city that has a religion, including Greek paganism, gets 2 culture a year for having a religion. This is true for every religion, so if you have multiple religions in a city, you get 2 culture for each religion in that city. So if we want to build our unique unit out of Croton, our champion seat, we're going to need it to get to developing culture. Let's do this while we tech to get 7 laws. We've researched sovereignty, so we have the choice of tyranny and constitution. This, I think, is up to your preference. I personally prefer tyranny because it gives you 8 gold per military unit in your territory, as well as base 20 global training. But constitution is also quite viable. That lets you build decrees in your capital, which are projects that you can complete for orders, and gives you 4 gold per specialist. Either of these is quite viable, but let's go with tyranny for this game. We're at 5 laws, 2 more to go. All right, Croton has just hit developing. Can we build our unique unit here? No, we need to build a stronghold first. All right, I'm going to grab this worker, and I want to build a stronghold, and I don't see it in the list. Well, before you can build a stronghold, you need to have a garrison. We didn't need to do this in our capital, because the capital automatically starts with a garrison. But for every other city that you want to have a unique unit in, you're going to have to build up a garrison first. Note you can build a garrison at weak culture, so it's usually a good idea to do this before you hit developing culture so that you can build the stronghold right away. We have our choice of our 6th law between monotheism and polytheism. I strongly recommend monotheism here if you have a state religion, just because it gives you an order per city following that state religion, of your cities specifically. That's a lot of orders, especially if you have a lot of cities. Let's say you have 9 cities, all 9 of them follow your state religion, you get 9 orders a year. Polytheism is more of a niche play. It lets you build every shrine in every city, so each shrine can have 4 cities. This is really good if you're going all in on pagan religions, but generally monotheism is going to be less work to get to 1 order a year from every city. That's just really hard to pass up, and if you found a world religion early enough, it can passively spread for you. Not going to get into religions in this video, but for now, let's just pick monotheism. We've got 6 laws, 1 more to go to build our unique unit. The Croton just finished its garrison. Let's go ahead and build a stronghold here. And once we finish this stronghold, we'll be able to produce the unique unit out of Croton. Pella has just hit strong here, but we can't build the Citadel yet because we don't have 7 laws yet. So balancing your city's cultural growth along with the laws that you're able to enact can enable you to get your unique unit as quickly as possible. All right, we've just finished our stronghold in Croton, and lo and behold, we can now build hoplites out of this city. All right, we've just unlocked the tech for our 7th law, a choice between divine rule and legal code. I'd recommend legal code here. It gives you 10 civics per active law. Since you're going to have 7 laws once you have legal code, if you're following this tech order, it's going to be an extra 70 civics a year. In my case, that more than doubles my civics. It's pretty good. Divine rule does allow you to adopt pagan state religions and makes every shrine -1 discontent. So if you went polytheism and built shrines in every city, that can be -4 discontent per city, which is pretty significant. So it's a viable option, but more of a niche play. Personally, I find legal code particularly preferable just because it's really hard to pass up those 10 civics per active law per year. Right, now we have 7 laws available, so we can build a citadel anywhere that we have strong culture. Pella has strong culture, so we can start that citadel there. Croton, however, does not have strong culture yet, so we're going to need to wait 12 years, in the tooltip it shows us right here, to get to strong culture. We can try to accelerate that by building a theater alongside our Odeon, as well as we have the shrine. The Odeon is required. You can build the Odeon at weak culture, and the theater requires developing culture, and then there's an amphitheater that requires strong culture. Generally, you're going to want to at least get Odeons and theaters in cities that you want to take to strong culture so that you can build the 2nd tier of unique unit. You're not going to be able to do that in every city. There's just not enough time in the game. So try to focus and prioritize at the cities that you feel are going to be best at producing that unique unit. Probably cities like a military production city like the Champion Seat, or anywhere that you have ore as a resource, or if your unique unit requires horses, anywhere that there's horses, try to pick maybe 2, 3, 4 cities that you're going to try to get to strong culture so that you can produce your unique unit out of there. The Croton just produced this hoplite. I'm actually going to start moving it over to Pella because I want to demonstrate one more thing. We've just finished that citadel in Pella, which means we can now build the Phalangites in Pella. So we can start that. At the same time, I've moved this hoplite that we produced over in Croton, which cannot yet build Phalangites because it does not have a citadel or strong culture, and it looks like it's 9 years away. But I moved it over here, and I can actually upgrade it, even though it was produced as a hoplite. As long as I'm in the city that has the citadel, it can be upgraded. If, for example, I move this over here into this city, I can't upgrade it because it requires a city with strong culture and with a citadel. So that means whichever city gets to first, strong culture with a citadel first, you can upgrade all your tier 6 strength units, 6 strength unique units to 8 strength unique units, which is particularly good if you're trying to do a timing attack and want to surprise your opponent with some beefy 8 strength units that they may not be expecting. All right, and now we've produced a Phalangite out of Pella, and we have the one that we've upgraded of Croton. We've built a theater here, so Croton is just 6 years away, and we're well on our way to having 2 cities that can produce our 8 strength unique unit alongside 7 laws. All right, at this point, You should have knowledge for how to build your nation's unique unit, understand the interplay of culture, the requirements for garrisons, strongholds, and citadels, as well as how having 4 and 7 laws is required for the stronghold and the citadel. Next, let's take a look at how each of these unique units from each of the nations plays out in practice. So I'm here on a test map that I built just to simulate combat using the map editor. I'm going to be using the console, which is Control-Shift-tilde, to place units and then have them fight each other. We'll start with a look at the Assyrian unique unit, the Battering Ram that upgrades into the Siege Tower. It's going to cost iron and wood to produce with upkeep of wood and 1 training. The Siege Tower doubles the wood cost, so it's 100, and also doubles the wood upkeep cost as well as 2 training. So here I've placed a Assyrian siege tower. Since I'm using the map editor, I've actually placed this as Babylon, but for now, let's just think this Assyrian unit, just to show you what this siege tower, the 8 strength version of the Assyrian unique unit, does to cities. This is a city that doesn't have any walls, just sort of basic city, not very much population, not a lot of city defense. Notice that the siege tower completely chunks this city. That's because it has a base 8 attack from 8 strength, has plus 50% because it's fighting into an urban tile, another plus 50% because it's siege, which basically doubles its attack and lets it chunk this city, which is just incredible amounts of damage. So the Assyrian unique unit is pretty good for taking down cities. Of course, realistically, notice how this thing cannot move very far. It can only move 1 tile at a time, which is a little underwhelming. It's also very, very weak to horse units. So here I've put a Persian horseman just to show you what this does to the poor siege tower. It does 9 damage to the siege tower, which is kind of insane, partly because we're on flat ground. We're in the territory of the family, mostly because of that plus 50% melee combat versus siege in the left side there. Melee horse get a huge bonus against siege weapons. So if you see your opponent sending siege towers your way, build horsemen, or even better, cataphracts, the 10 strength version, to take out their siege units. Of course, if you're the Assyrian, you'll want to move your siege units in a way that they are defended against horsemen, perhaps have them surrounded by spearmen or pikemen. Lastly, I want to show off one more thing. You'll notice it's 1 move per order. Very, very painful, very, very slow. But on a road, siege units get double bonus from road movement. So this siege unit can move quite a ways along the road. So if you're going to be using siege units, you definitely want to build roads so that you can use them to move around. This is especially important if you're building the siege tower Assyrian unique unit. You want to build roads so that you can get close to the front lines. Of course, you won't be able to build roads in your opponent's terrain, so it will be a little slow on the approach. Or rather, even if you do build roads in your opponent's terrain, you can't take advantage of the roads. I don't think you can even build them with your workers, though. And lastly, the Assyrian siege tower also can attack forts. So here I've put a Persian maceman inside this fort, and you'll see that the Assyrian siege tower gets a plus 50% attack bonus versus fort, which helps it essentially chip away against the fort's defense bonus. It's as if the fort were not there. So very good for breaking an established position, assuming you can get it into place and you can defend it from horse units. That's the Assyrian siege tower. Babylon's unique unit is the Akkadian archer, and also upgrades to the Cimmeran archer. It costs 150 wood to produce, which is a lot of wood. You're not going to be able to really support this unit without having lumber mills up and running. And then it has wood upkeep, food upkeep, and 1 point of training upkeep. The upgraded version essentially doubles the training upkeep, doubles the wood upkeep, keeps the food upkeep the same, and costs 200 wood to produce. It is a super archer, basically, that has splash. Splash basically means the attacks are going to do 25% of attack damage to nearby units. So if we take a look at this situation here that I've set up, we can see if I attack this unit here, I'm doing 4 points of damage there, and then it splashes. Splash, of course, goes from every unit. So you can see how just by attacking this unit, we've also done a significant amount of damage to all the other units nearby. So because the Babylonian unit is a ranged unit, it takes ranged fall-off damage. You can see I'm actually going to do more damage if I'm closer. I do 6 points of damage because I get fall-off damage for being further away. Here I'm only doing 3 points of damage because I'm so far away. The other downside of the Babylonian unit is because you're attacking into trees, if you're attacking into trees, trees produce 50% less attack. So you see that minus 50. And if I were attacking into scrub, that would be minus 25. So you want to keep an eye on the terrain that you're in. Lastly, you only have 3 attack range. This archer can't hit that unit. It's too far away. But if I use the map editor to make that a hill, suddenly I can hit that unit because I get an additional point of range for being on a hill. So you'll definitely want to station these units on hills, as well as look out for the Highlander promotion that gives you plus 25% strength from being on a hill. For example, here's the Highlander promotion. If I move this unit off, move this unit on, and give this the Highlander promotion, then I see that I have that plus 25% damage from being on a hill. If you're facing a lot of Cimmeran archers, swordsmen are probably going to be your best bet. This is because swordsmen have plus 50% strength in melee combat versus infantry units. So these are infantry, so if you can just get in range of them, you can do a lot of damage because you're essentially attacking at 12 strength versus an 8 strength unit. But it doesn't help you if you're not in melee with them because, well, it only applies to melee combat. Similarly, if you're a Babylonian unit, you'll want to protect your Cimmeran archers and Akkadian archers against enemy swordsmen and macemen that have the bonus towards infantry. You'll want to make sure that they can't get to your archers and that your archers are well protected, ideally on hills, and you can just fire and splash damage to your heart's content and deal tons of damage. This is a really terrifying and powerful unique unit, probably one of the strongest unique units in the game. One more thing, notice how much splash damage we do. We can just melt entire. So we killed this unit and we effectively took these other units way down. We can then rinse and repeat and just do insane amounts of damage. If you've got a lot of Cimmeran archers, it can be really, really challenging to fight because they can just destroy a ton of units, especially if units are tightly clustered. One more thing to look out for. You'll want to look out for the Eagle Eye promotion. So the promotions you get for each unit are random when it's produced, but you'll notice this Eagle Eye icon. This ignores the distance modifier. So remember how we had less and less damage the further we were away? If you have an Eagle Eye promotion, you no longer have that damage reduction, and it's incredibly powerful in that sense. And Eagle Eye gates the Marksman promotion. So you need Eagle Eye in order to unlock Marksman. Marksman gives you 1 additional range on your Cimmeran archer or your Akkadian archer. This is incredibly powerful because now you have 4 range and you don't take any reduction in range damage. So you're basically a walking onager, except for you don't have an unlimbered time. Add that with Highlander, so you do more damage on hills, and you have an incredibly powerful and terrifying unit that you should protect very carefully so that your opponent cannot kill it. But in the right hands and with the right protection, that unit can win you games, especially if you have a bunch of other units like it as well. Carthage's unique unit is the African elephant, or upgraded, the turreted elephant. It takes food and wood to produce, has food upkeep as well as the standard training upkeep. The upgraded version takes 6 food upkeep, so quite a lot of food, as well as requiring 100 wood to produce. It is an elephant with rout and panic, unlike normal elephants, which just have panic. So it's an elephant that has rout and panic. Those two are an interesting interplay. Rout lets you attack again after combat, but panic will push back a unit, or if the unit can't be pushed back, it'll be stunned. So you'll need to think a little bit about how you use these two in combo. Maybe you try to get killing blows with one elephant so you can rout with it, but otherwise it's very convenient for pushing units back. Or if you're fighting in a crowded front, you can stun units and enable your other units to do damage to that unit without that unit being able to respond because it's stunned, just like a tactician stun. Alright, so I put some turreted elephants along with some Persian units. First, let's show off panic when a unit can't retreat. So if this elephant attacks the swordsman can't retreat, so it gets stunned, and you'll see a cooldown stunned, that swordsman won't be able to do anything next turn, so you can disable a unit if it has nowhere to retreat. If you do have somewhere to retreat, that unit will get pushed back. It'll push back to one of the 2 eligible squares it can go to. You'll still do your damage, your elephant won't advance, but you can push a unit out of position. This is particularly useful if you have an onager in a fort, for example, and you want to be able to push that onager out, or if you have any unit in a fort, you can just push it out of the fort. It's really, really strong. Do note, though, that the order of operations matters here. If we attack this unit now, we no longer stun it. Instead, we retreat it and push it into another square. That's essentially the Carthaginian special unit, the turreted elephant or the African elephant. It's pretty good, a little tricky to use because of how panic will push units back or stun them, depending what's surrounded. But overall, strong unit. The main constraint really is elephants. You may not have elephants on the map. Your rider seat as Carthage will always give you a guaranteed elephant because it's the rider seat. But if you don't find a lot of other elephants on the map, it can be really challenging to build a lot of these units. As mounted units, they are weak to pikemen, as well as to the Greek unique unit, but otherwise they are very, very strong. Good units, just a little tough to build, and a little tricky to use with panic. Egypt's unique unit is the light chariot that upgrades into the Kushite cavalry. It does require horses to build, and it takes 100 food and 50 wood for the 6 strength version with food upkeep, and 100 food and 100 wood with 6 food upkeep for the 8 strength version. Notably, this unit has 4 moves, which is the most moves you have for any unit in the game, as well as an incredible 6 tiles of visibility. It's also a ranged mounted unit with 2 range, so it can move faster than any other unit in the game, fire from 2 range, and has incredible visibility on the field. So Kushite cavalry are incredibly mobile, as you can see. Like, look at how many tiles. Like, they can just move so far per order, and they get 4 moves per order. It's just incredible mobility. This combines really well with their ability to ignore zone of control. And if you were actually playing Egypt and producing these out of Saddleborn rider seat, you would also get the Saddleboard bonus for flanking, so they're very easy to flank with. I'm just spawning them here in the unit editor with Babylon, so I don't have that benefit. They do great damage, and their mobility makes it really easy to surround and focus down units as you like, just because you have that great mobility, and they can appear out of nowhere because they move faster than anything else in the game. A very, very strong unique unit. The Greece unique unit is the Hoplite that upgrades to the Phalangite, as we saw in our first part of this video. It starts with formation that gives it plus 20% defense if it's next to another unit that's identical to it, Phalangite or Hoplite. So a Hoplite needs to be next to a Hoplite, a Phalangite needs to be next to the Phalangite. The upgraded versions do not count. It has the incredible anti-mounted 2 that gives it plus 50% strength in melee combat versus mounted units, as well as having pierce, so it attacks the unit directly behind the tile that it's attacking as well. Production-wise, it costs 100 iron and 50 wood to produce, with upkeep of training, food, and 2 iron. The upgraded version takes 4 iron and 2 training instead, and costs 100 of each to produce. Here I've spawned some of them in. You can see that they have plus 50% melee combat versus a mounted unit, and you'll notice that the damage goes through as well because of pierce. So you'll see I can pierce. If this unit were to attack it, let me resurrect that unit, you'll see that it also has a plus 20% defense bonus from the adjacent Phalangite. Notice that even though this unit has 2 of them adjacent, you only get 1 bonus for having 1, as well as that 50% strength versus mounted units. Phalangites are the unique unit that is the best at taking care of mounted units. They really fill a nice gap in the tech tree. Normally, if you wanted good mounted unit support, you'd get the 5 strength spearmen, and then there is a long drought until you get to infantry square and the 8 strength pikemen. There is no 6 strength anti-mounted pole arm class unit. The closest you'll get is the conscript, which is a 5 strength one, just like the spearmen. However, it's produced with growth, so easier to produce than the spearmen, which costs military production and 50 iron and 50 wood. the conscript just takes 100 growth to produce, and starts with anti-mounted and cleave, but again, it is only 5 strength, and pikeman is pretty far away. The Greek unique unit fills a nice niche in the tech tree by giving you something that can stop, again, enemy horse units. And it works against mounted horse, ranged horse, and normal horse as well. The bonus is in melee combat, so if they're attacking, they get the bonus. The defensive bonus is only if it's a melee horse. If it's a ranged horse, like Egypt or Persia's unique unit, they won't get the bonus when defending, only when attacking. If you're faced with someone building Phalangites against you, the best thing you can do is build swordsmen. Swordsmen get that incredible plus 50% strength in melee combat against infantry, which lets them trade favorably against the Phalangite. Swordsmen will deal 8 damage. The Phalangite will only deal 4 in response. Overall, I find the Hoplite Phalangite a versatile unit that fills a nice niche in the tech tree, worth building as Greece, especially if you're facing enemies that are using horse units, particularly nations such as Babylon, Persia, and Hatti. All of them have unique units that have horse. Very good to have Phalangites. You will still need to be prepared for the building swordsmen to kill your Phalangites, and you may need to build your own swordsmen. But yeah, you should be able to trade favorably against their horse units. The Hatti's unique unit is the Heavy Chariot, or upgraded, the 3-man Chariot. It costs 100 food and 50 wood to build, with 4 food upkeep for the 6 strength version, or 100 of each, and 6 upkeep for the 3-man Chariot 8 strength version. It starts with Rout and Circle. Circle allows its attacks to damage every unit nearby at 10% damage. You can think of the 3-man Chariot as essentially a super chariot. It's very versatile, can move around pretty quickly. If you are building out of a rider's seat, you can get the nice flanking bonus from Saddleborn. Since I'm just placing these units using the map editor, I can't illustrate that. They do great damage, trade favorably against swordsmen, and yeah, pretty solid. At least trade favorably against swordsmen on flat ground, thanks to all horse units having that bonus. The one thing to be aware of is if you do go down them, there's not much point going for barding, because this is just a 10 strength version of what you have, a set 8 strength version. Essentially, barding is very, very similar. I should show what circle does. So this one will attack, and then it deals damage to all units nearby. I guess it was 0 damage there, so it didn't actually deal that much damage there. Or rather, circle, the way circle actually works is it is damaging in a circle around that unit. So here we do that unit got 1 damage here. This one doesn't circle anything because the tiles around this unit are the ones that get circled, not the tiles around the attacking unit. It's an important point about how circle works. And circle doesn't seem like it's a lot, but that 1 hit point of damage sometimes can add up, especially if you're doing route chains or attacking. Definitely have been moments in games where I've noticed that 1 damage from circle. Cataphracts also have circle, and Cataphracts are the unit at the end of the tech tree with barding. They're a 10 strength version, essentially, of the 8 strength 3-man Chariot. So I think Hatti has an interesting tech dilemma. Not really a dilemma. You basically can take your 8 strength version and try to end the game before barding becomes an issue, or before your enemies get pikemen. Notice pikemen are very, very deadly. Because you're in melee combat, you don't deal a lot of damage against pikemen, and pikemen have 100% 100% against mounted units in melee combat. So this is essentially a 16 strength unit with an 8 strength unit, not doing a lot of damage, and notice it just tears apart your poor unique unit. It does well even against the 10 strength Cataphracts, but you really feel it with the 8 strength unit. But they are also pretty far in the tech tree. So yeah, there's a nice little window where no one has anything to stop your 8 strength chariots, and there is no 8 strength version of the chariot. You go from horseman to the Cataphract, 6 strength horseman to 10 strength Cataphract. So Hatti also occupy an interesting niche in the tech tree and really can enable mounted unit play that can be pretty solid. Persia's unique unit is the Palton Cavalry, or the upgraded version, the Cataphract Archer, not to be confused with a unit called Cataphract, which is a unit available to everyone. Persia is the only one that gets the Cataphract Archer. Paltons and Cataphract Archers are essentially ranged mounted horse. The unique thing about them is they also have rout. They are the only ranged unit that has rout. This is really, really powerful. I would actually argue these are the strongest unique units in the game, largely because they're ranged and they have rout, which means you can build a huge mass of them and then just completely destroy your enemy. They are ranged units, so if you're facing them, hiding in forests or scrub can help. And they are mounted units, so building pikemen, if you tech to that, or being Greece, so you have Phalangites, or just having a lot of spearmen can also try to help. But these are the most terrifying units in the game. They can single-handedly win you a battle if you have like 8 or 9 of them and your opponent just cannot stop them just because they trade so efficiently. Clearly my favorite unique unit as well. Cost-wise, they cost just food and iron to build. There's no wood cost, and the upkeep is iron, not food. So the recent changes that have increased food upkeep don't really apply to them because they are an iron upkeep unit. So make sure you have enough mines to keep that upkeep, but you're not going to suddenly be drowning in food losses. They do cost 100 food and 100 iron to build for the upgraded version, and 100 iron and 50 food. So prioritize iron for these because they have iron upkeep. And yeah, really, really, really solid unit. All right, I've spawned a bunch of them in here. Remember, Persia also has the Rider family, which lets it get the flanking bonus from Saddleborn, which I can't illustrate here because I have just spawned these units in. It also has the Hunter family, so it's worth producing these both out of your Rider and your Hunter seat. The Hunter family will give you that plus 20% Sentinel bonus, which is 20% strength in national territory. So if you're forward settling or even just fighting a defensive war, having them out of the Hunter terrain is Hunter cities is also quite good. But yeah, let's just illustrate what these units can do. They are super duper strong. We're just going to destroy the swordsman, and here's the fun part. We are going to rout, and now we can attack again. And if I had orders, and this wasn't just a test map, you could imagine essentially wiping, like it takes 4 hits to kill, right? So now this one's going to be able to move in and hit, this one's going to be able to move in and hit, this one's going to be able to hit, and then a 4th one, because of rout, I'll be able to kill 2 swordsmen. It's incredibly efficient. These are the most terrifying units in the game. Keep them alive, protect them with everything you've got, upgrade them, put good generals on them. They are so strong. Super terrifying. If you're facing them, try to have spearmen, try to tech to pikemen, try to be Greece so you can have Phalangites if you're facing Persia. They are really terrifying and really hard to stop. But yeah, Persian unique unit, probably the strongest unique unit in the game, and probably one of my favorite ones to use just because they're so mobile. They have rout, they can be produced in hunter seats and rider seats, and you can just tell by the smile on my face, in my voice right now, these are really an amazing unit. That's a ton of fun to play with. Finally, we have Rome that has Hastatus and Legionary as its unique unit. These are essentially super swordsmen, sort of, except for instead of getting a bonus against infantry units like swordsmen, they get a smaller bonus against melee units, which is situational. They also cost more to produce than swordsmen. So the Legionary, the 8th strength version, costs 160, where swordsmen cost 120. They have identical upkeep to swordsmen, 4 iron, 1 food, and 2 training, and they cost a lot of iron to make, 200. In fact, with the cheaper version, the lower version, the 6th strength version, costing 150 iron and just 2 iron upkeep. They also have Testudo. Testudo is like Fortify. It's mutually exclusive with Fortify, and it gives you a 20% defensive bonus against range units as long as you don't move. You can attack with it, but you can't leave your tile. So they're very good for holding fixed positions, because instead of fortifying, you can get Testudo and use that against ranged units. They are not that great a unit, in my opinion, largely because most of the time I'd rather have a swordsman than a legionary, but potentially in some situational cases where you're facing a lot of, say, horse melee units that aren't infantry, you could potentially build centurions over that, especially if you don't have access to pikemen, because then you'll want something to stop Cataphracts, for example. They'll stand toe-to-toe with Cataphracts because they are essentially a 10 strength unit against a Cataphract. So it's an interesting unit to use, but somewhat situational, I think, in its uses. So I've spawned in a bunch of Legionaries here against a Cataphract, a Swordsman, and a Pikeman to give you an idea of what they do. You'll see they hold toe-to-toe. They deal 6 damage to Cataphracts, and if we weren't on flat ground, the Cataphract would deal 6 damage back, but we are in flat ground. They don't trade favorably with Swordsmen. They only deal 5 damage to Swordsmen, where Swordsmen deal 8 damage back. They do trade favorably with Pikemen. They deal 8 damage to Pikemen and only take 4 damage back. Here's an example of Testudo. It is just like Fortify, but it stacks up way faster and goes up way higher to 60% instead of Fortify's 25%. And it's just a defensive bonus against ranged units. So if I Testudo all of these, then the ranged unit will deal less damage. Skip animations here, and we'll just keep going forward here. So now it just does 4 damage. It was 5 last turn. As Testudo stacks up, and now it's fully stacked up, and we see the ranged unit only does 3 damage a turn because of Testudo. That 60% defense is pretty sweet. Doesn't help you in attacking, it's just a defensive bonus, but if for some reason you're facing a lot of ranged units in a fixed position, remember moving cancels Testudo, so you don't want to move while you have Testudo up. But for some reason, if you're facing a lot of ranged units and you're in a fixed position, Legionaries can be quite strong. A situation that might come to mind is we have a fortified front with Mangonels, and you have Legionaries Testudoed in front to protect against other Mangonels, or perhaps you have some of them fortified to protect against Cataphracts, something like that. Pretty versatile unit, really kind of late game. Most of the time I think I would prefer Swordsman. So this has been a long, hopefully informative video. Just to sum up, you're going to be trying to get 7 laws here, going along these paths here. So everything in green you're going to have. So you're going to have your unique unit and get it to 8 strength with 7 laws. At the same time, you're probably going to try to tech to one of these final endgame units, the Cataphract, the Pikeman, which comes along with longbows as well, Swordsman, potentially the Polyvolley with the Crossbowman or the Mangonel. And generally you're going to want to try to pair one of these endgame techs with something that goes well with your unique unit. For example, I tend to favor the ranged unique units like Persia's or Babylon's or Egypt's because I can go down Cataphract and then I have a nice combination of melee and ranged unit. You can also, of course, go down the Mangonel line and get that ranged. You can go towards Longbowmen. I personally find Longbowmen somewhat underwhelming to build. I think I'd rather have Siege most of the time, but try to think about a unique unit that pairs well with your endgame choice, or rather a endgame choice that pairs well with your nation's unique unit. Also remember, you might not get to your endgame choice, so look at the 6 strength versions that come along the way, like Macemen and Horsemen. Part of the challenge, I think, with Longbowmen is there isn't really a 6 strength version. It is a little further in the tech tree, but potentially can pair well. Onagers are even earlier in the tech tree. They are only 5. They are 6 strength as well. They're super strong. A little awkward to use, but they can pair really well with melee unique units because of that strength, and because the melee unique units can protect them against those all dangerous horse units that want to come and kill the Onagers, as we saw earlier in the video when Assyria had its unique unit obliterated by horse. So lastly, I will start with a discussion of what I think the strongest unique units are, just sort of a tier list, if you will, of unique units. Number 1, I would put the Cataphract Archer head and shoulders above all the others. The fact that it has Rout as a ranged unit, the fact that it doesn't require wood to build and only has iron upkeep, all these things are great, as well as just coming from Persia, you have the natural synergy with pastures that get extra orders as Persia, as well as the benefits from having rider and hunters. This unit double dips, or at least appreciates both, in that you have Saddleborn or Sentinel as you desire from either riders or hunters. Number 1 is definitely Cataphract Archer. Next tier down, I would place 3 unique units. The Cimmeran Archer from Babylon, very strong, terrifying in large numbers, but a little challenging because it costs so much wood to build and also has wood upkeep. But these things with Eagle Eye and Marksman and Highlander are terrifying because of that splash. And yeah, if you can protect them, they're really, really strong. So Babylon, I think, is in that second tier, along with Egypt, which has the terrifyingly fast Kushite cavalry. A little tougher to use now, especially with that food cost, but Egypt does have extra or lower cost for farms on river. I believe that's the bonus. Or no, they get extra production from extra food from farm on river and lower cost for identical adjacent improvements. So Egypt should be able to support that food cost. Their speed is terrifying. They just don't have route. Otherwise, they would be in the same tier as Persia. And yeah, very strong. You can also build riders, these from riders here, and get that nice saddleborne bonus. Very easy to flank with these as well. Rounding out that second tier, I would place Greece's unique unit, the Phalangite, largely because of how well it fits into that niche in the tech tree, especially as a way of shutting down Egypt or Persia or Hatti mounted units. You don't really have a good option until pikemen, which is very, very far in the tech tree. You're not going to have that before your opponent with Egypt, Persia, or Hatti have 7 loss. So the Greek unique unit fills that niche, and it is just particularly strong against mounted units, but does suffer to be weak against swordsmen. So I might put that slightly below Babylon and Egypt. Next tier, I would put Hatti's unique unit. This is probably similar to Greek in that it fits a niche in the tech tree. There's nothing between horseman and cataphract in terms of 6 to 10 strength. The 3-man chariot provides something and gives you that 8 strength version of a chariot. It's pretty good. A little challenging to use in that it does cost wood to build, but Hatti generally have all their units able to chop, so it shouldn't be too bad. The food cost is a little terrifying now, but should be supportable. Just need to make sure you have more farms than you might think than pre-patch. So pretty strong. Ultimately, though, I think they're a tier below just because they do get outclassed by endgame units. So the 3-man chariot is outclassed eventually by cataphracts, which are exactly the same in terms of what they do, except for their 10 strength. And yeah, they don't take wood to produce. They just take iron. Wood is pretty challenging to have in numbers to produce. If you saw my single player Hatti game, I kind of ran into the issue that I just did not have enough wood and food to produce these in numbers. And yeah, iron is much easier to come by. In that tier with Hatti, I would also put the Carthaginian turreted elephant unique unit, a very strong unit, but suffers from that wood to build, similar to the Hatti unit, and suffers from the fact that it requires elephants. Elephants can be very hard to find on maps and are not really reliable, which means you're probably in a bad role. You can only build this out of your rider seat if there are no elephants at all on the map, or you may be constrained on the cities that you can actually build your unique unit out of. And fundamentally, it's just not going to be that impactful if you can't build a lot of them. And if you're only building out of 1 or 2 cities, you're not going to be able to build them in sufficient quantities to really be super impactful. Contrast this to something like the Persian or Babylonian unique unit, where if you have 10 of them, you are in great shape. The elephant, I think, is a little harder to use. Panic, particularly, can be super challenging. It's more of a finesse weapon, but in the right hands, it can be incredibly devastating, and there are very strong units. Very strong units, don't get me wrong. Just a little trickier to build, and just not quite as good because you're constrained by elephants, and I'd say the wood cost. Lastly, in a tier below, I would put sort of in the situational tier, if you will, Legionaries, Rome's unique unit. I just find these somewhat underwhelming. Rome is already very strong as a civilization, so they don't necessarily need to have a super strong unique unit. But fundamentally, I think I would just prefer swordsmen almost in every situation, unless I'm facing like late game cataphracts, and for some reason I don't have anything to stop them with, apart from legionaries. And rounding out that situational tier, I would put Assyria's unique unit. Also, Assyria is another great military strong civ. They have that incredible focus promotion on every unit, which is really, really strong. And also 2 orders per military unit killed, which is also really, really strong. So they don't necessarily need to have a strong unique unit, so it can be more situational. This one, I think the challenge is they just have that one move. It is so slow to move if you don't have roads. And fundamentally to me feels more like a win more unit in that you're winning. If you're already winning, it's great to bust down a city faster, but the siege tower isn't really going to help you get to the point where you're busting down the enemy cities. It's not very good against other units. can be good against breaking forts now, since assault now applies into forts. But really, it's pretty situational, and I feel, especially with its wood upkeep, I mean, if I'm spending 4 wood for upkeep, I would much rather have the Babylonian unique unit than the siege tower. So, somewhat situational. All right, well, there you have it. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you've learned everything there is to know about unique units, how to build them, as well as the relative strengths and weaknesses of the 8 unique units in the game for the 8 nations. Appreciate any comments, questions, suggestions, things I missed in comments. All welcome. Have a great day.